Kekko chat. Welcome. Good morning, and I hope all of you are doing fantastically today. Because I am. I am especially doing fantastically because I am completely and totally ready to do this tier list of everything in Duelist Nexus, or at least the TCG version. Duelist Nexus is the latest set. It's coming out in about a week. I think it is a very good set. And it's also got some really cool cards in it. Anyways, let us start getting into the tier list. And this is a tier list that I personally created. Yes, it is a tier list of every single card in Duelist Nexus from 000 to 100. Well, actually 99, but technically it's 00. Technically there are 100 cards in Duelist Nexus, but that doesn't really matter. It's got some nice support for all old archetypes. Not all old archetypes, a lot of old archetypes, but some of these pictures are going to be a teensy little bit scuffed since some of them are only available in photographs. Anyways, I also have the Wikipedia page for Duelist Nexus open on the other page. With this, I am going to open up every single card that I can. First up, we have got 000, Magician of Bonds and Unity. This card's garbage. Absolute, complete, total garbage. It goes right at the bottom of pack filler. Next up, we will be getting into the first absolutely broken, absolutely overpowered, stupid card of the set, Revolution Synchron. Revolution Synchron says, if you synchro summon a power 2 monster or a level 7 or 8 dragon, it can also be used as material in hand. So that is a good start already. And then, the actually ridiculous part of this effect, if you control a level 7 or higher synchro monster while it's in your graveyard, you can send the top card of your deck to the graveyard, and if you do, special summon this card. Also, its level becomes 1. You can only use this effect of Revolution Synchron once per duel. This is literally just Glow Up Bulb's effect. This is literally just a version of Glow Up Bulb that is better. It's insane. Revolution Synchron can also be summoned with Junk Speeder and go into an 8-star. And then you can summon it back. In the OCG, it's pretty much used for Chaos Roller, but in the TCG, I'm fairly certain it will probably be used for some slightly different things. But yeah, Revolution Synchron, genuinely overpowered. The first of many cards that are going to be going into that tier for today. Next up, Gazelle, King of Mythical Claws. Gazelle is just basically a decent card. It's a Stratos for level 5 Fiends or Camaro Fusion. There are a decent amount of level 5 Fiends that are pretty good. I'm not necessarily going to pull them all up right now, but it should be on the tips page. Yeah. The most important one of these is probably Earthbound Prisoner Stone Sweeper, which is a decent card. But it can also search Morin Fen. Anyways, this is good for its archetype, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily good in general as a card. If it's sent to the graveyard as material for a fusion, you can add an illusion from your deck to your hand. That is very strong. All I can say now is, this searching a monster as a fusion material and adding a level 5 Fiend or Camaro Fusion, it's generally a pretty good card. And the more level 5 Fiends that come out, the better Gazelle will be. So, he is gonna go right up here in A tier. Next up, we got Big Winged Baphomet. Baphomet says if it's normal or special summoned, you can add a level 4 beast monster and or a Chimera Fusion from your deck to your hand, but you can't special summon monsters from your extra deck for the rest of the turn, except for fusion monsters. If it's sent to the graveyard as material for a fusion, you summon an illusion from your graveyard, and of course, it's got the once per turn clause. Now, Baphomet is slightly different to Gazelle in that Baphomet is specifically limited to fusion decks. However, the fact that it adds 2 cards from deck to hand instead of just 1 is pretty strong, if you ask me. And if it's sent to graveyard as material, you can target an illusion monster and revive it, which is also pretty strong, but the better thing is its first effect. Any fusion deck that uses a level 4 beast will be very happy to have this. Do you know what fusion deck there is that has a level 4 beast? Branded. Given how the card works and the card pool right now, I'd say I'd put it at an A tier, but slightly better than Gazelle. Still, the more illusion cards that come out over time, the better Big-Winged Baphomet will become. Now, next up, we get into the real meat of the illusions. First, Cornfield Collateral. Cornfield Collateral shares several effects with other illusion monsters. Well, actually, it only really shares its first effect with other illusion monsters. So, illusion monsters all have an effect that say, if they battle a monster, neither monster can be destroyed by that battle. You can only use each of the following effects once per turn. You can discard it to add a monster that mentions Chimera Fusion from your deck to your hand, except Cornfield Collateral. When your opponent activates a card or effect that targets a card you control, while you control Chimera, you can banish it from your field or graveyard, negate that effect, and if you do, destroy that card. Well, specifically, Chimera the Mythical Flying Beast. This effect is really good. But yeah, Cornfield Collateral, really up there with ridiculousness. Well, actually not ridiculousness, but it's a pretty good card. And the more cards that mention Chimera Fusion that come out, the better Cornfield Collateral will get. Overall, I'll probably put Cornfield Collateral in A tier, though a little below Baphomet. Next up is Mirror Sword Knight. It has the regular illusion effect, as always, and you can only use each effect once per turn. So, it has a quick effect to attribute it and special a monster that mentions Chimera Fusion except itself, and when the monster your opponent controls activates its effect, while you control Chimera the Flying Mythical Beast, quick effect, you can banish it from your field or graveyard to negate that effect. The Lone Fire Blossom effect is really good. It can summon out from deck Baphomet, which is kind of insane. I'm also going to put this card up in A tier. Next up, Doubleheaded Dino King Rex and Mighty Dino King Rex. So, Doubleheaded Dino King Rex, it's pretty decent, basically. You can just special summon it for free if you control no monsters. You can only special summon it once per turn this way. And if it's normal or special summoned, you can target one monster on the field with less attack than the total attack of all dinosaurs you control and destroy it. I would say this card is actually really good, to be honest. It's like up there in the B tier, probably really high B tier. Now Mighty Dino King Rex, on the other hand, this card sucks. Why would you play this when you can just play Ultimate Conductor Tyranno? Honestly, this is just C tier. As for what's up next, we have got Altergeist, Malice. Now Malice is really good. If she's added to your hand, except by drawing it, you can special summon it. And if it's normal or special, you can target an Altergeist monster in your graveyard except Malice, special summon it in defense, but for the rest of the turn it can't activate its effects on the field. You can only use each effect once per turn, but that is genuinely pretty fine because you're only going to want to use this effect once per turn. Honestly, I can see a world in which this is just used to turbo out Cupid Pitch in a deck that doesn't need to normal summon. It can also turbo out the free Herald of the Arclight as a negate if you play 3 Malice and one of that, 1 Linkuriboh and 1 Herald of the Arclight in the extra deck. So overall, I would say this card is pretty good. Not necessarily game-breaking, but pretty good. I might actually create an extra tier here, and this shall be the S tier, which is not genuinely overpowered, but still really good. Next up, we got Altergeist Paratrader. It can attack directly. That seems somewhat familiar. You can only use each of the following effects once per turn. When it inflicts battle damage, you can draw a card. If it's sent to the graveyard, you can send an Altergeist from your hand, deck, or face-up field to the graveyard except itself. Yeah, honestly, this is just a worse Malice. C tier. Next up, Vanadium Torrid. So, Torrid is another of the Vanadium tuners. It special summons if you control a Vsauce or a monster with 2100 defense, 1500 attack. You play this in one of your Vsauce Starfrost decks. So, it's an additional extender. Its second effect, however, is particularly important. If it's destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon any Vanadium tuner from your deck. You can only use this effect of Torrid once per turn, but that doesn't matter, because with Torrid, you shall be special summoning the non-once per turn Vanadium Meek. I wouldn't say Torrid is game-breakingly overpowered, but it is still up there in S tier. This card is going to make Vanadium a genuine threat in the mirror. In the meta, I mean, not the mirror. Next up, we have the 2 Infinable Knights from the main deck. Richardetto and Turpin. So, Richardetto is a 1-star tuner that can banish itself to special summon a level 4 or lower Fire Warrior monster from your hand as a tuner, which is interesting. It's actually really interesting, since if you open this and another, fire monster, it is very, very easy to extend pretty well. The second effect is not really that good. You don't want to normal summon him. If it's normal or special summon, you can target a level 4 or lower Fire Warrior in your graveyard, special summon it, and you can't special summon monsters for the rest of the turn except warriors. I think it probably won't be used that much though, maybe as a one-off, as an extender through Isolde if you already have Renowned. So, I should probably put Richardetto in the top of B tier. But next up, Turpin is actually pretty strong. Turpin's effect is, while it's an equip card, the equipped monster can be treated as a tuner if used as synchro material, which is actually pretty good for Infinable Knights. They kind of need more tuners, or at least higher level tuners that are, you're able to summon out with a normal summon. But there are a couple of tuners already, but it's always better to have more tuners. Its second effect really shines though. If you control a monster equipped with an equip card, you can special summon it from your hand or graveyard, but if you summon it from the graveyard, you banish it when it leaves the field. See, this basically says, hey, you get to special summon monsters for playing the game. So, Turpin as a level 4 warrior that stays a level 4 when special summoned will go up here into the A tier. And next we have the Nemleria cards. First, Dreaming Reality of Nemleria Realized. Now, in D tier, basically, cards that suck but aren't just straight up filler will go here. So, Nemleria is this. Honestly, This is also straight up pack filler. And now we move on to the Unchained. First, we have Unchained Soul of Chavara. During the main phase, if it's in your hand, you can target a fiend monster or a face-down card you control, destroy it, and if you do, special it. But while it's face up in the monster zone, you can't special summon monsters except for fiends. If it's sent to the graveyard, you can set an Unchained spell or trap directly from your deck. You can only use each effect of Chavara once per turn. Now, Chavara in particular is really, really good. It actually gives Unchained a game plan other than, just hope you draw your spell traps. Because the thing about Chavara is it bridges the line between your spell traps and your monsters. Previously, Unchained only really had ways to search monsters from deck, but with Chavara, getting spells and traps from your deck is actually really easy. Chavara as an S tier. Next up, Yama. Yama targets a card you control, destroys it, then destroys a spell or trap on the field. And if it's in the graveyard, you can target a fiend or a face-down card you control, destroy it, and if you do, special summon it, but place it on the bottom of the deck when it leaves the field. If you can only use each effect of it once per turn. So Yama is something that Unchained has also sorely needed. A graveyard extender. Finally, Unchaineds don't die if they just have monsters in the graveyard, and they have something they want to actually link away as well. So I would put Yama up there in the A tier, however. Next up, Ultimate Bright Knight Ursatron Alpha. This card is very interesting, is what I can say at the absolute least about it. I will still put this up in A tier, if only because it is a Drytron card that is an extender. Next up, we have Rescue Ace Preventer. Now let me tell you, Preventer, really good. Really, really good. Like, actually, crazily ridiculous. It's a free special summon from hand. You can Book of Moon an opponent's monster at any point in time. And if it's sent to the graveyard, you can target a banished rescue ace and special summon it. So this solves a lot of problems with the deck. Like, a lot of them. And its quick effect is really, really good. A Book of Moon is always amazing, to be honest. Although the fact that it only targets effect monsters is slightly annoying, but really, realistically, you're not going to target anything else but effect monsters. So I think I will put this up in S tier. It actually makes Rescue Ace a decent meta threat. Including, well, that is to say, when it's included with the other Rescue Ace card support that is in the set. But we'll get to that a little later. For now, we're gonna do Thestalos the Shadowfire Monarch. So Thestalos the Shadowfire Monarch is very interesting. You can tribute summon it by tributing one monster your opponent controls and one tribute summon monster you control, which this is the first monster with that effect as far as I know. It's not that good though, because it is a 10-star. It has 3000 attack, meaning it's not searchable by any of the Monarch cards. The only thing keeping it a Monarch is the fact that it has Monarch in the name. And if it's tribute summoned, you can banish a random card from your opponent's hand and then inflict 1000 damage. Then if it was tribute summoned by tributing a level 8 or higher tribute summon monster, you can banish a card on the field. And if it was a fire or dark, inflict damage to your opponent equal to its original level times 200. I'll put it in the C tier. The only reason it's not lower is because it's not an objectively bad card or just pack filler, but it is still pretty mediocre, below average. You know what I mean. Anyways, next up, Behemoth, the King of 100 Battles. Hopefully I can get back into the swing of things pretty easily. So, this card is, this card would be good, but the issue is it is a 10-star beast, which actually now I just realized this is searchable by the Memlarius continuous spell, isn't it? Anyways, I would put this in B tier because while it has a good and interesting effect, it's not really going to break the meta or anything. Next up, Agnimal Candle. This adorable little thing is a Pyro Tuner 4-star. If it's added to hand except by drawing it, you can special summon it. So, the new Bonfire card is really cool. You could use it to search Preventer or any of the other big attack rescue ace stuff. Indeed. Indeed you could. Agnimal Candle, however, has 17 attack, 0 defense. If it's added to hand except by drawing it, you can special summon it. And sorry about that. As I was saying, if it's added to hand except by drawing it, you can special summon it, and you can only use this effect once per turn. Once per chain, up to thrice per turn. If a monster is sent to the grave, you can increase or decrease its level by 1. So, this can just be searched by several different cards. It can be searched by a whole bunch of the new cards, Heater as well, and other stuff too. Agnimal Candle is pretty decent. I'd still put it up in B tier, maybe A tier for its adorableness. Well, if we're taking adorableness into account, actually, this would be genuinely overpowered up here. But A tier, its adorableness, I'll give it enough credit for that and its effect. Look at this little cutie. Doesn't he look adorable? Next up, we got Click and Echo. Click and Echo is an adorable pair of dolphins, or sharks, I'm not sure. They look like dolphins or sharks, but it could be either way. That can't be used as material for fusion, synchro, or XZ summons, only link summons, and can't be tributed while face up in the monster zone. So, kind of like Ibly, but slightly different. If it's sent to the graveyard as material for a link summon, you can special summon this card in defense position to the opponent's field. While it, summoned by its effect, is face up in the monster zone, you must keep your hand revealed. So, honestly, I would put Click and Echo up in A tier. It's pretty strong. Next up, the fusions. Chimera, the king of phantom beasts. This is the first phantom beast support in years. Its name becomes Chimera while on the field or in the graveyard, and you can only use each of the following effects once per turn. If it's fusion summoned, you can activate this effect. Just hand rip your opponent during the end phase. And during your opponent's turn, you can banish it to target a beast, fiend, or illusion monster in your graveyard. Special summon it for free. Now, Chimera is really good. Really good. It's up there in the S tier. Next we have Chimera, the Illusion Beast. Chimera the Illusion Beast is an 8-star Dark Illusion Fusion effect with 3100 attack, 2800 defense, and it requires Chimera the Flying Mythical Beast and an illusion monster or more. Its name becomes Chimera while on the field or in the graveyard, and it can also attack monsters a number of times each battle phase up to the number of materials used for it. This is interesting, but it's 2 attacks. It's not that good. It has the regular illusion effect. If it battles a monster, neither can be destroyed. And at the end of the damage step, if it did battle an opponent's monster, that monster's attack can go to 0 and its effects Straight up negated. This thing is really interesting. I wouldn't particularly say it's amazing, but it is fairly okay. I'd put it up in A tier. Moving on to the next card. Sleipnir, the Runic Main. It, as always, has the same fusion material requirements as every other runic card. It's a level 9 monster you can special summon from your extra deck with a runic spell card. During your main phase or your opponent's battle phase, you can target a face-up monster your opponent controls, banish that monster and this card until the end phase. This is really cool because it actually allows runic a form of repeatable removal that is not contingent on their actual spells and traps, which the deck needed because now every runic quick play spell is a removal spell as well. Anyways, Sleipnir, being such a good card, to be honest, is actually up there near the top of A tier, maybe even S tier. If Sleipnir is an S tier though, it's a low S tier, high A tier. Next up, we have Magnum the Reliever. Magnum the Reliever is interesting. He is a light fiend fusion with 8 stars, 2800 attack, and 2000 defense, and requires 1 monster special summon from the extra deck and 1 monster in the hand as fusion materials. And its effects are also really good. You can target a poly or fusion spell in your grave, place it on the bottom, then draw a card, which, well, of course, that is really good. And when another card or its effect is activated, you can banish 1 poly or fusion spell from your graveyard, then target a card on the field, destroy it. So I'd probably put it in the A tier, but not S. Up here with some of the better illusion monsters. Next up, fusion monsters. So, we got Cosmic Quasar. Honestly, probably put it up in B tier. Next up, we are moving on to the Crimson Dragon. The card, of course, because it is absolutely ridiculous, but, well, let me just read it to you. It's a light dragon synchro that's 12 stars with 0 attack and 0 defense. If it's special summoned, you can add 1 spell or trap that mentions Crimson Dragon from your deck to your hand. Okay, looking good so far. Quick effect. You can target a level 7 or higher synchro monster on the field except Crimson Dragon. Return this card to the extra deck specifically, and if you do, special a dragon synchro from your extra deck with the same level as the targeted monster. And this is treated as a synchro summon. This is a really big effect because, well, let's just say Crimson Dragon can synchro summon a Hot Red Dragon Archfiend King Calamity. Genuinely overpowered. Not anything worse than genuinely overpowered. It is ridiculous. Now that we've done with the second genuinely overpowered card in the set, we'll move on to Vsauce Amritara. Vsauce Amritara is the Vsauce synchro monster. First off, getting into his effects and stuff, he is a light warrior synchro tuner effect. He is a level 8 that's 2500 attack, 2100 defense, and requires 1+ tuners and 1 light monster. This card's name becomes Vsauce Starfrost while on the field. If it's synchro summoned, you can search any spell or trap that mentions Vsauce from your deck to your hand. This includes all the Monadium traps, spells and traps, all of the Telement spells and traps, and all of the Scareclaw spells and traps. Which kind of says something about this card and how ridiculous it is. During your main phase, you can destroy a monster you control, and all synchro monsters you control will gain 800 attack this turn, including all of the monsters on the field and all of the monsters that you will actually summon. I'll put Amritara up in S tier with the rest of the really, really good cards this set. Next we got Angelica. She's a Fire Warrior Synchro with 5 stars, 1200 attack, 2400 defense. She is thankfully generic, but if she's normal or special summoned, you can add a Horn of Oliphant or one card that mentions Emperor Charles from deck to hand. Angelica's second effect is when a card or effect is activated that targets this card on the field, or when this card is targeted for an attack. You can send any Fire Warrior from your deck to the graveyard, and if you do, you can banish it. Then you can special a Roland from your deck or extra deck. Angelica is really high up. She's probably an S tier, if not high A tier. Next up, we got ourselves Evil Zala, the first XYZ monster of the set. It is a 6-star Fire Dragon Xyz with 2500 attack and 1500 defense. I wonder what 6-star dragons there are around these days. Anyways, it requires 2 level 6, and while it has material, your opponent can't target it with monster effects. When your opponent activates a card or effect, you can detach 2 materials from this card, or just 1 material if all this card's materials are reptile and or dinosaur. That is a very specific wording that I have never seen before on any other card. Then target 1 face-up card your opponent controls and negate its effects until the end of this turn. This card is really good. It gives Dragon Link an excuse to actually play any, Xyz monster. It's up here in S tier, not near the top, but it's pretty strong. Next up, pearly Noir. Pearly Noir is very silly. It is a pearly card. Rank 2 Dark Fairy Xyz effect, which requires 2 level 2s, and once per turn you can discard a card, then target 1 card your opponent controls, or up to 2 if you have Sleepy Memory, return that cards to the hand. But the first effect is not what we're looking at this for. Oh no. The effect that we're looking at this for is the second effect. Up to thrice per turn, when you activate a Pearly Quick Play spell, you can attach that card on the field to this card as material. Then you can set 1 Pearly Trap directly from your deck. The second effect is really strong. It means Pearly and the new Pearly Trap card, Shelley Pearly, are searchable through your extra deck. Any way possible. The important part of the effect is it mentions Pearly Sleepy Memory. Mentioning the quick play spell means that it is able to be Xyz summoned with it. So, you can Xyz summon this card with Pearly Sleepy Memory off of Pearly. Then with Noir, when you activate another Pearly quick play spell, you attach it, set from deck a Pearleap. Then you get to draw a card during your opponent's standby phase. Then, with Pearleap, you get to special summon X Pearly Noir, which has multiple quick effect disruptions since you have a Pearly as a material. And you also get to draw another card. And you also get a Towers. Honestly, I'll put it at the bottom of genuinely overpowered. Anyways, as I was continuing on, there is, after Grenosaurus Giga Cannon, of course, the first of the Link monsters, Altergeist Adminia. All 3 of these Link monsters are really good, by the way. Like, seriously. Adminia is good, and then the other 2, oh my goodness. Altergeist Adminia, 2+ Altergeist monsters. If Adminia is Link summoned, you can set an Altergeist trap directly from your deck. And once while Adminia is face up on the field, during the main phase, you can send a single card you control to the graveyard, then snatch steal an opponent's monster and treat it as an Altergeist, just like Toon Hand did. Comic Hand, I mean. You can only use each effect once per turn. this is a really good card. Like, seriously. Altergeists kind of needed a Link 4 payoff that wasn't just Memory Gant attack for game or something. I mean, Barrel Sword and Access Code Talker already exist, so Memory Gant was kind of okay compared to Barrel Sword because it was able to be summoned while you were under the Altergeist lock. But essentially, Adminia is just straight up better. It's a searcher for any of the traps, so you get to do a second Marionetta per turn. And it snatch steals, which means you can free up your opponent's board and then link that monster away for an Altergeist link monster because it's treated as an Altergeist. It's up high S tier though. High S tier. Altergeist getting 2 S tier cards is pretty cool for them, by the way, but they are not necessarily going to become like this super strong threat or anything. Anyways, with Adminia done, next up we got Emperor Charles the Great. Emperor Charles the Great is a Link 1 Fire Warrior with a bottom center Link Arrow, 3000 attack as a Link 1, which is interesting and requires 1 level 9 Infinable Knight Emperor Charles equipped with an equip card as a Link material. So, if Emperor Charles the Great is Link summoned, you can target any Infinable Knight Emperor Charles in your graveyard. Its name becomes that target's original name and it gains that target's original effects. Then it's equipped to it as an equip spell that gains 500 attack for Charles. The second effect, once per turn when a spell or trap card or effect is activated, you can send an equipped spell from your hand or face-up field to the graveyard, negate the activation, and if you do, destroy that card. Also, its effects are not once per turn, so if you can revive Charles, then link into a second Emperor Charles the Great, you can target Charles again, and it gains that effect, and can use this effect as well. Kind of ridiculous if you ask me. But I will put Emperor Charles up here in S tier. He gives the deck a sorely needed spell and trap negate in archetype, and is basically just a free guy. Next up, we go on to the third link of the bunch, Unchained Soul Lord of Yama. Now this is the pinnacle of a custom card for Unchained. It needs 2 fiends, and if it's special summoned, note that wording, not if it's link summoned. Specialed, you can add any Unchained monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand. And if a card you control is destroyed by battle or card effect while it's in the graveyard, you can banish it, special a fiend from hand or graveyard, then you can destroy a card you control. This is really silly, because you can just search for Chavara. Chavara effect pops it, special summons sets from deck the Unchained trap, and then you can just do anything you want. And in Labyrinth, which by the way you can make this in Labyrinth because it's generic and needs 2 fiends, and is a fiend as well, you just get another free pop spell. Kind of insane if you ask me. Going right up there in S tier. Now, we have finished with the monsters. Now then, it's time to move onwards to the spells and traps. These spells and traps are really good, let me tell you. First off, Synchro Overtop. Target any number of level 7 or 8 dragon synchro monsters in your graveyard. Soul Charge, but their levels become 1 and their effects are negated. Also, you can't special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of the turn except synchro monsters. So it's like Soul Charge, but for a bunch of level 1s, but that also become level 7 or 8 dragon synchros. It's okay. Its second effect is really cool, though. When a Synchro monster you control is destroyed by battle, you can banish it to special a Crimson Dragon from your extra deck. Totally fair and balanced grave effect, see? It's not like super strong. Making the cards level 1 is annoying, but it's still an S tier because it does special summon about a bunch of monsters from the graveyard. Next we have Synchro World. This card is pretty interesting. When a Synchro monster is Synchro summoned, you place 2 signal counters on it, and if it's destroyed by an opponent's card effect, you can special a Crimson Dragon from your extra deck. That is on basically every Crimson Dragon thing. You can remove 4, 7, or 10 signal counters from your field to apply the appropriate effect. 4 increases or decreases the level of a face-up monster you control by 1. 7 specials a tuner from your graveyard, and 10 special summons a Synchro from your graveyard. Now, this final effect, the 10 effect, is not necessarily really that good. Well, it is that good, but it is not really that easy to get out. Like, you have to Synchro summon 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 5 times during a turn. Which, I mean, that's totally reasonable in Synchron, to be fair, but also, a lot of the time in Synchron, if you do use Synchro World, you know, you'll be searching it off of Crimson Dragon as opposed to using Synchro World before summoning Crimson Dragon, unless you play 3 of it, which you wouldn't want to because it's searchable off of Crimson Dragon. Basically, this card is probably an A tier for how good it is for the deck, but it's B tier in that you really don't want to draw it. Next up, we got one of the big spells in this set, Chimera Fusion. See, the thing about Chimera Fusion is a quick play spell which during the main phase, Fusion summons any Fusion monster from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as material, including a beast or fiend monster. And during your main phase, if it's in the graveyard and you have Chimera the Flying Mythical Beast on your field or in your graveyard, you can add it to your hand or banish it and special summon a Gazelle and Baphomet from your deck and or graveyard. Now this second effect is kind of bad because Baphomet and Gazelle are not very good cards. Baphomet is just a searcher for Gazelle, and Gazelle is a 4-star beast Earth normal. So I guess you can make a link to or something. But hey, it's not that bad, I guess. The first effect is what you want it for in the grave. And the fact that it's a quick play fusion spell that fuses using monsters from hand or field. You can use this to easily go into Guardian Chimera, which, well, let's just say Guardian Chimera is, as always, a ridiculously insane card. So I'll put it up in S tier just because of how good it is, how good its grave effect, and how good it is as a quick play fusion that does not have any stipulations except for using a beast or fiend monster. Next, we have Infinable Arms, Almace. Almace is interesting. While it's equipped to a monster, you can equip an Infinable equip spell from your deck or graveyard to one appropriate monster you control, then destroy it. So this is good because it searches the Infinable Searcher, which is da-da-da-da-da-da, the actual good one. Noble Arms. Well, you know, the Noble Arms that searches a Fire Warrior. It's unfortunate that it has to equip to a monster you control, because if it was any monster on the field, that'd be a lot stronger because it would make Vanquish Soul a lot more consistent going second. But given Almace is your monster, it's still pretty good for the archetype. I shall put Almace all the way up to A tier. Next we have Noble Arms Museum. which is basically a museum where all the Infinable Arms are. And we have a whole bunch of people in silhouettes in there. It's a field spell, which has the effect all fire warriors gain 500, which is decent because it just pumps up your fire warriors. Sometimes that actually matters in games. And you can pay 1200 life points, a very specific amount of life points, to add a Noble Arms from your deck to your hand, except Noble Arms Museum. This is really good in Noble Knights. In general. Like, seriously. It's amazing in Infinable Knights, but just as a Noble Knight deck, it's really good. It searches the searcher that searches the monster, which searches the searcher. Honestly, I put this in S tier because it's just a good field spell in general. Depending on whether or not Noble Knights actually become good at some point, which I'd imagine Konami is going to try again for that, just pure Noble Knights to actually be good, this might end up really good. But as of right now, it's just S tier, low S tier. Just S tier is very high, by the way, so... Next up, we have Emergency. That is a reference to PSO2. So, basically, what Emergency does is, it's a Rescue Ace card, it's really good, it's a special summon a Rescue Ace from the deck in defense position, tribute a Rescue Ace from hand or field, and during the main phase, you can banish it and target a Rescue Ace trap in your graveyard and set it. If you can't tell, this card is really crazy. Basically, this card, up there in the S tier. Not sure if I want to put it in overpowered, but S tier works. S tier works. Next up, we move on to Dark Corridor. I mean, it's Dark Corridor. What can I say about it? It's just S tier. This card is just activate a Dark World from your deck. And then you get to play the game continuously, yay. It's got no cost, no effect, nothing except you just activate a Dark World from your deck. Instant S tier. Now, Sinful Spoils of Subversion Snake Eye is an interesting card. As of right now, Sinful Spoils is an archetype that doesn't really, exist in the form it'll come to exist in the next set. There are a couple of support cards for another card which are basically Sinful Spoils, but pretty much any Sinful Spoils card can be searched by the new lore monster, as far as I can tell. As far as I can tell, she is the new lore monster. I'll put a picture of her up on the screen if I ever edit this into a video, which I probably will. This, meanwhile, though, is an A tier. Next we have Fusion Armament. This is fusion deployment for the extra deck and graveyard instead of the deck and hand. It also negates the effects, but that's kind of doesn't really matter. You're just special summoning it as a material, and if there's like a grave effect, you can use that grave effect. Honestly, probably an A tier. Next we have Duelist Genesis. If you have a tuner on your field or in your graveyard, add a Synchron spell or trap from your deck to your hand. You can only activate one Duelist Genesis per turn. This is just Generation Force for Synchro cards. I'll put it in A tier. Next up, we got Tokusano Shinkyojin. Tokusano Shinkyojin is interesting. It's trade-in, but from your field as well, and you can also send multiple monsters. And it's for level 10, and you draw 2 cards. By that alone, I'll put it on A tier, but Otherwise, it's just a decent card. It's like, just draw 2 cards for free in any level 10 deck. Next, Scrap Iron Scrap Sacred Statue. The first of the traps. Target a 7 or 8 dragon synchro that's banished or in your graveyard. Special summon it, but return it to your extra deck during the end phase, then set it face down instead of sending it to the graveyard. This is a good effect, and if it's set and destroyed by an opponent's card effect, you special summon a Crimson Dragon from your extra. Yeah, generally this is pretty good. This is pretty strong. Scrap Iron Sacred Statue is probably an A tier. It can recycle Excel Synchron Stardust Dragon, it's searchable by Crimson Dragon, and it's overall a pretty decent card. It can also revive any Synchro monster and put back your really important ones that need to go into the extra deck into them. Next we have Pearly Shelley. This is really good. Target a Pearly Xyz, special a level 1 Pearly from your deck, negate its effects, special an Pearly Xyz with the same rank but a different attribute. Then you can attach a card from your deck to that Xyz summon monster with the same name as a Pearly Quick Play spell attached to the targeted monster. So, the way this works, you have this attached to... You set this and leap from deck with the effect of Noir, activate this, special summon a Pearly, overlay for another one, place Sleepy Memory under it, then draw a card. Or you can also place summon Beauty and place under it, summon Beauty and place under it Pretty Memory, Happiness, place under it Happy Memory, you know. But it's just another draw engine for the deck, basically. Really strong. S tier. Not the top of it, but Noir kind of makes it difficult to tell. Next, we have Banishing Trap Hole. When your opponent summons monsters with 1500 or less attack, banish that monsters with 1500 or less attack face down. This card is funny, but also fairly strong, A tier. You're Finished. This card is very interesting. It's a continuous trap with the effect if 10 or more cards or effects have been activated this turn, and/or effects, that is, special as an effect monster, but set it in your spell and trap zone during the end phase. This is an effect only shed with Cyber Shadow Gardener, I think, and once per turn when your opponent activates a card or effect while it's in your monster zone, you can destroy as many cards your opponent controls as possible, then set it into your spell and trap zone. At the most, I could see it being high B tier. Some people might play it, but I don't know if I would play it. Anyways, next up, we move on to the TCG exclusive and import section. This is going to be pretty nice because of the new cards, the Tistinas. First, we've got Zootomosaurus. While you control another dinosaur, your opponent's monsters can't target it for attacks. And you can target another card you control and destroy it. You can only use this effect once per turn. When the baby Ceratosaurus is destroyed by card effect. C tier. Finisterre, Tower of the Necro World, is up next. If you control a level 10 monster, you can special summon it from your hand, and you can only special summon it once per turn this way. If a card's sent to the graveyard, you can target a face-up card, and it can't be destroyed by card effects. You can only use this effect once per turn. So, it's just a 10-star extender. I'll put it up here with King Rex, because they're basically the same card, but this extends into a field that already has a 10-star. This extends with no 6-star. We got Quibelt, the Blade Dragon. If it's Synchro Summon, you can target a card on the field and destroy it. And if it's destroyed, you can target one monster on the field. It can't attack until the end of your opponent's turn. It's a 7-star Dragon Synchro. You can summon it with Destrudo in Dragon Link and just get a free pop. Decent enough. High B tier. Storage Pod. Pack filler. Synchro Forceback is a trap card which says, target monsters on the field up to the number of synchros with different names you control. Return them to the hand. This is really good. This is really good. But the issue is, it isn't really searchable except through certain cards like Duelist Genesis or, other similar cards. So I'd honestly put it at a B tier, but you can still draw into it with Hyper Librarian if you're trying hard enough. Next up, we go into the Tistina series. Well, not series, archetype. We have Sentinel of the Tistina first. Sentinel's effect is, if it's in your hand or graveyard and you control a light Tistina, you can special summon this card. It doesn't get banished, it just special summons for free. You can target a Tistina monster or a face-down card you control, destroy it, then add a Tistina card from your deck to your hand. This is really good. It is a free search by popping a face-down card. Technically, it is, well, not a free search, but it basically is because you can set a whole bunch of cards. You can also pop any Tistina monster on your board, which is really good. Really, really good. Wrong page. Anyways, you can only use each effect once per turn, which is basically the only restriction, but Sentinel of the Tistina is a really good start. Being a Wind Aqua 3-star with 1200 attack and 1400 defense doesn't necessarily make it the most searchable monster, but it's fine. Tistinas are probably good enough anyways. Next up, we got Hound of the Tistina. If it's in your hand or graveyard and you control a light Tistina monster, you can special summon this card. I'd imagine most of the smaller Tistina monsters will include this effect, even in the next set. So, you can only use this effect once per turn, and Tistina monsters you control can attack directly while your opponent controls one face-down defense position monster. This is really strong. Well, actually, it is not really strong. It's strong-ish, but the attacking directly effect isn't necessarily going to matter that much of the time. Next up, Demigod of the Tistina. Oh, yeah, also, this goes in S rank. This goes in B tier. S tier and B tier. So, we got Demigod of the Tistina. If you control a Tistina card, any card including, for instance, Sentinel, which searches Demigod, you can special summon it, then you can add a Tistina spell or trap from your deck to your hand. It's also got an effect that during your opponent's turn, if you control Crystal God Tistina, which is the boss monster of the archetype, you can change as many monsters your opponent controls as possible to face down the opponent's position, then send all face-up cards your opponent controls to the graveyard. I will once again put Demigod in S tier around here. Next, we got Crystal God Tistina herself. During your main phase, you can change as many monsters your opponent controls as possible to face down defense position, then send all face-up cards your opponent controls to the graveyard. It's like Demigod, but slightly better since you do it on your turn, but also slightly worse since you do it on your turn. If it's destroyed by an opponent's card, you can do the same thing. That is also pretty decent, because there is one way in Engine to special summon her, so the C rank probably goes up to a B rank. Next up, we have Divine Domain Bar Tistina. Divine Domain Bar Tistina says, during your main phase, you can send a Tistina monster from your deck to your graveyard. Then, if your opponent controls 3 or more face-up cards, you can special summon a Crystal God Tistina from your deck. If it's destroyed by your opponent's card effect, you can special summon a Tistina from your deck or graveyard. Honestly, the first effect is just Foolish Burial. It's just literally Foolish Burial for the deck. It is insane. This card is ridiculous. This card is Foolish Burial for cards that revive themselves as long as you have a light Tistina up. It's definitely not as good as the monsters though, but it's still pretty good. A tier. Next we have Breath of the Tistina. During your main phase, Breath of the Tistina is a continuous spell card. During the main phase, you can normal summon one Tistina monster in addition to your normal summon or set. You can only gain this effect once per turn. You can target one face-up monster you control, or if you control a light Tistina, a face-up monster on the field instead. Book of Moon it. Then add a Tistina card from your deck to your hand except itself. This card is ridiculous. Fortunately, it's not yet overpowered because the Tistina cards are slightly worse, but I will still put it in the genuinely overpowered mark here. Then, last, we have Signs of the Tistina. You activate it by targeting a face-up monster on the field, special summon it as an effect monster with the following effect. During the opponent's turn, when it leaves the field, destroy this card, and during your opponent's turn, when this card leaves the field, destroy that target. This card is D tier at best. Anyways, next up, we're moving on to the OCG imports. First, Daidara Bocchi. Daidara Bocchi is, as far as I know, based on a popular yokai from Japanese mythology. This is pack filler. Stardust Worm. Stardust Worm's a 1-star light dragon effect monster with 0 attack and 0 defense. If it's in your hand or graveyard and you control a level 8 or higher dragon synchro, you can special summon it, but banish it when it leaves the field. And you contribute it to special summon up to 2 level 1 light dragon monsters from your hand or graveyard, and or graveyard specifically, except Worm, but their effects are negated. You can only use each effect once per turn. C tier. You'd rather search Converging Will's Dragon. And it's not that good anyway. Next we have Red Eyes Black Meteor Dragon. Red Eyes Black Meteor Dragon is a Dark Dragon 6-star effect monster with 2000 attack and 2000 defense, just to clarify. You can send a level 5 or higher normal monster from your hand or deck to the graveyard to special summon it, then increase its level by 1. This is interesting. Why is this interesting? Because this can send Psy-Frame Driver from your hand or deck to the graveyard. During the main phase, except the turn it was sent to the grave, you can banish it from your grave and add a Red Eyes Fusion from your deck or grave to your hand. So it just searches the Dragoon card. It searches Dragoon card. Dragoon Machine broke. As it is right now, I'm going to put Diabolica in C tier. This is just not very good. This is just worse super heavy samurai scales. The adding a face-up machine pendulum monster's decent, I guess, but like still. It's worse scales. You have to search it with Soul Piercer or Gear Gargant X as well. Oh, wait, actually you can search this with the effect of Ancient Gearbox. Interesting. Maybe there is a reason to play this then. Okay, I'll put this in B tier maybe. Searchable by Ancient Gearbox, so it's decent enough, I guess, but worse than I think it will probably be. Magician of Faithfulness is a level 5 flip spellcaster light effect with 600 attack, 800 defense. You can target a spell in your graveyard, add it to your hand. Then you can special summon a Magician of Faith or Faithfulness from your deck in face down defense position. And you can only use this effect once per turn. Maybe back in like 2014 or something this would have been good. Maybe. But as of right now, D tier, I guess. Not pack filler, D tier. Next, finally, for the final card in Duelist Nexus, we have Magic-Key Deity Ashtatu. Once as a level 8 Fairy Exceeds Effect Light monster, rank 8, that is to say, with 3000 attack and defense, Ashtatu has this effect. With 2 level 8 monsters to summon it, Once per turn, when your normal or magic key monster destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you can detach a material, then inflict damage equal to the destroyed monster's original attack. So, it's basically just a damage dealer if you use it in any other deck, because it's generic. Also, once during your opponent's main phase per turn, you can target a monster your opponent controls with the same attribute as a normal monster or a magic key you control or is in your graveyard. Detach a material, and if you do, banish that monster. This is particularly good against light decks, but really, it's not that good in general. I'd give it a B tier just because it's decent enough, but yeah. And that was it. That was every single card in Duelist Nexus. Wow, this took a lot longer than I expected, to be honest. But at least I managed to do it. Like, seriously. I still have no clue about this, though. But anyways, thanks everyone for coming along. If you think my tier list has anything that can be changed around, maybe you should let me know sometime. I think basically everything here is covered. Like, all the S tiers are S tier, all the A tiers are A tier, B tiers, B tier. Genuinely overpowered are mostly genuinely overpowered. I'm not sure about this one though. This one could potentially not be overpowered. It entirely depends on the Testinas. But regardless, everything else is in order, I think. So, honestly, I think I had a lot of fun doing this. At least the artwork is pretty cool. That's it's kind of meant to be like a pseudo rip-off version of Dark Magician and Dark Magician Girl together, working together in bonds and unity. But it is still a pretty garbage card.